A lot of people ask me, why do you look at an order flow chart? Right? What do you gain out of looking at an order flow chart? And there are actually three big reasons why we look at an order flow chart. And this Scott is not the only aspect of our order flow. There are about three major reasons why we look at the order flow chart. And the most important reason is to find out how the big money is positioned in the market. So when I'm looking at an order flow chart, I am not interested in what the trader who is trading 2 lots at a time or 4 lots at a time is doing. There could be about thousands of these kind of traders, and when they come together, yes, a move would happen, but by themselves, they cannot move a market, right? But when a LLT or a large lot trader comes along, and he's putting about 2,000 lots at work at one time, do you agree with me that a 2,000 lot trader is to be viewed a bit differently from a 2-lot trader? The person who is putting 2,000 lots at work in the market at one time is got a plan, he's got strategy, and he's got capital to back him up, right? And because of that strategy, because of that plan, he takes a position and he's got a small thing, which we call an edge, EDGE. And this edge is what is the defining moment, for a move to come in the market. A lot of people ask me, why do you look at an order flow chart? Right? What do you gain out of looking at an order flow chart? And there are actually three big reasons why we look at an order flow chart. And this Scott is not the only aspect of our order flow. There are about three major reasons why we look at the order flow chart. And the most important reason is to find out how the big money is positioned in the market. So when I'm looking at an order flow chart, I am not interested in what the trader who is trading 2 lots at a time or 4 lots at a time is doing. There could be about thousands of these kind of traders, and when they come together, yes, a move would happen, but by themselves, they cannot move a market, right? But when a LLT or a large lot trader comes along, and he's putting about 2,000 lots at work at one time, do you agree with me that a 2,000 lot trader is to be viewed a bit differently from a 2-lot trader? The person who is putting 2,000 lots at work in the market at one time is got a plan, he's got strategy, and he's got capital to back him up, right? And because of that strategy, because of that plan, he takes a position and he's got a small thing, which we call an edge, EDGE. And this edge is what is the defining moment, for a move to come in the market.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, all. A quick sound check. I hope I am audible. Great. Welcome back to our Monday session, 5 p.m. and where we talk about what has happened in the previous week and how this week is started, and the look ahead for the current week. So let's start with the spot, and then we'll move on to the futures, and then we'll have look at some order flow nuances which we use. So starting with the weekly report, which you all guys must be knowing that we post them on the website, and which has a small brief about what the spot did in the previous week. So we have it divided into the daily charts so that we can see what has happened on a daily basis, and then we brief it up saying what happened on the week. So weekly profile in Nifty spot was a neutral extreme one to the upside. Why was it a neutral extreme? Because as you can see in the daily chart, we made an attempt to probe higher on Monday, last Monday. We even went above this value area high, And before probing higher, the open was not a strong one. The open was lower, where in the initial balance, the A and B period, we in fact remained in previous value, and we tested this weekly POC of 24229. So once this was tested, we can see you can see how we left a zone of singles in the B period. So this is the zone of singles at any reference market profile reference is showing us rejection. If you have lot of TPOs at a certain level, it is showing us acceptance. So when we get a single TPO here, it is showing us rejection from this level. And so when one VPOC, and this is relevant for all time frames. So when one VPOC is got rejected, the auction will then move up on the opposite side to test the nearest VPOC. So once we got rejected at this weekly VPOC of 24229, the auction probed higher, went on to test this weekly VPOC higher, which was the nearest VPOC. This was at 24459. So this was also the rollover point of August, and we have been mentioning this in all our sessions. It has been mentioned in the daily report also. So what we did was in the E period, we had a similar kind of auction what we saw in the B period at the lows. So we got a rejection at this VPOC also. So here now what is this telling you? The auction is not ready to break below this POC. That means it is getting demand over here, and at this point it is getting supply. So this was the range which was fixed in the Nifty spot on Monday in the afternoon. So the buyer came back, he probed higher, but the buying could not sustain above this POC. So from here again we made a move back lower. We closed as the day's half back, and then the next day we opened below this POC of Monday. So as long as on spot we do not have volume, so we look at POC as our important reference. This is again valid for all time frames, daily, weekly, monthly. So on the daily, when we were below the POC of Monday, the PLR, the path of least resistance, was to the downside. And then when we made poor highs, it also indicated exhaustion to the upside. And then we went on to probe lower, break the singles. So on Monday, the demand which was coming here was overcome on Tuesday, which resulted in a trend day down. And this also meant we completed the 80% rule in this weekly value. We can see how the weekly value is a nice balance, and we went on to hit the lows of this weekly value. So here again we had similar lows and similar highs, so we had to test one of the zones to see if you're getting more selling or more buying at that level. So what we did on Wednesday was we opened and repaired these poor lows of Tuesday, but we did not sustain, and we formed a very narrow range Gaussian curve. So the imbalance which started from the rejection of this weekly VPOC of 24459 was coming to a close with this Gaussian curve. So this move lower was done because here it was showing poor trade facilitation in going further down. So when we formed this prominent POC at 24157, this POC was our reference for the next session. Friday, Thursday was a holiday because of Independence Day, and then when we opened on Friday, it was a gap up. So a gap up, what it did was it could not take off this Monday's POC, and we again made a probe down. B made lower lows, and the C side made a good range extension. But you can see where we have stopped. We stalled right at the highs of Wednesday, and this highs was 24195, which was also an extension handle from the trend day of 13th of August. So this is how the market profile references will keep repeatedly giving us cues. So when this 24196 was not able to be taken out on the upside, it was showing us that the supply is holding here. But when we gapped up and opened probe lower, this almost closed the gap, but it was not breaking below this level. So 24196 remains an important reference on the downside. And when we were not able to break below this, and then we started making higher highs on the 30 minutes from this E period, it was clear that the auction is now again to the change to the upside, the PLR. So then we went on to scale above this POC. of Monday and take off this selling tail. And then what we did was we went on to tag this value area high of the weekly composite. So Friday was a neutral extreme day to the upside, and on the weekly chart, the weekly profile was also a neutral extreme one to the upside. So you can see how the value was almost overlapping. It was similar to what value we had in the previous week. And if we have a neutral extreme zone, we need to take from where the neutral extreme is begun. Where is it confirmed? So you can see the POC was right in the lower part of the profile, which was a 24150, and then we have a HVN at 24300, and we had another HVN at 24421, which was the POC of Monday, which we were not able to take out in multiple attempts till the afternoon when we saw that neutral extreme profile shaping up. So here the highs of Monday 24472, which was also the series VWAP of July, is one important reference, and from that is where the uh, profile on the weekly change from normal variation down to a neutral profile. And once that was taken out, so 24472 would be our neutral extreme zone on the weekly time frame. And we had one extension handle at 24518, from where we closed higher. We went on to make a high of 24564, I think. So that is what happened in the weekly. And we had this small uh, write up where we have almost similar value as previous week, and the neutral zone being from 24470 to 564, which will be the support for the coming week for a test of the gap zone of 24696. So because Nifty spot had opened with a big gap down on 5th of August, so that was also a weekly gap. So that is where the weekly singles are. The selling tail started from the 24696 to 24403, I think. So we were getting accepted in that zone, but it is important to take out this 24696 for that supply to get negated completely. So, and we have these HVNs for this week, which are the lower supports which we are looking at. So these were the hypos which were there for today. And coming to today's chart, let us just see what happened in Nifty. And this is today's profile chart. I'll just increase the TPO size so that we can have a clearer view. So what we did today was got another gap up, but in that gap up, again, we did not get any fresh demand. And when I enlarge the uh, profile, we'll be able to see where we have stalled. And we'll also want to bring to notice the hypos which we give and how clinically we try to derive them based on the market profile setups. So here you can see the hypo on the upside was this 24641, which was the 2 ATR from a unvisited VPOC. So when the auction is leaving a VPOC, it is not tagging a VPOC, then we look at probable target being the 1 ATR and the 2 ATR from that reference. It also stands good for the when we get a failed auction, the FA. So the 2 ATR from the VPOC of 24157 was 24641. So which is where we opened today, and the open high was right at that level. So it was telling us that it is not able to sustain above that 24641, which was already given in the hypos. So once you know, and we can also see this zone of the selling gap, the invisible tail, which is 24693, the tail of 2nd of August to the gap down of 5th of August. So we know this is a supply zone, and once we don't find the auction sustaining above one certain reference, it is always telling us that the auction may probe lower to test the lower references. So what we did in the IB was the B made lower lows, and then we got back into this neutral extreme profile of Friday. So B was taking support at the highs, but once we made the D, it was obvious that we are going to test the lower reference. What was the lower reference on Friday? It was this extension handle where you can see the LTPO just moved away from the profile. So this was the neutral extreme zone on the daily time frame, which was 24518 to 24564. So you can check out today's low was 24522. So which is telling us that this neutral extreme extension handle is holding the downside for now. So we will need to see for tomorrow. What we have done today is formed a nice balanced profile with tails at both ends. So in market profile, we call this a 313 profile because we have a nice balance in the middle and small rejections on both the sides. And they are similar kind of rejections in the sense, similar kind of the size of the tails are almost same. So now we will need to get accepted or get rejected from one of these tails in the coming days for this week. So that will tell us what the auction is trying to do. On the downside, this will be our reference 24516. And if we break below this, then we are looking for a test of the 24472, which I was telling was the neutral extreme low of the weekly profile. So 24518, then 24472, which is also the VWAP of July series. And then we have a HVN at 24421, which will be our next level if we break below 24472. And then we have this value which will go, and the profile, if I unmerge this profile, neutral extreme and trend day profiles are important days because those profiles are telling us that one of the player dominated the proceedings. So trend days and neutral extreme profiles, what we do is we take the halfback. So this 24384 will be one support level once the uh, 24420 HVN is broken. And then below this we have the scene of crime, which will be the lower references. So that is how we will have to see how what spot does going forward in this week. For now, we have made a nice balance today and we have formed value above the previous week's value, and we are above the neutral extreme zone of 24472. So we will have to sustain above the previous week highs, which was at 24564, which is where we have formed the prominent POC today. So that POC would be our reference for the open, and whether we sustain above the POC or below the POC will have the opening bias for us. And then accordingly, what every TPO does, we will need to go with the uh, flow. So 24518, if it is broken, then we look at lower support of 24472, then 24420. And as it keeps going, we will see if it is breaking a level and sustaining, or whether it is leaving a tail at some reference, which will tell us that the move on that direction is over. So this is as far as the Nifty spot is concerned. A quick look at the Nifty futures chart. So we'll finish up with the Nifty and then we'll move on to Bank Nifty, both spot and futures, so that so you can see how the Nifty futures has formed a nice Gaussian curve, and same thing, it's a 313 profile. We have three uh, TPOs of A which are standing out on the top, and three TPOs of the D which is standing out at the lows. So it's an ideal balanced Gaussian curve with tails, similar tails at both ends, and a close right in the middle, which is the overlapping POC of 24592. So it's similar. Friday's POC was at 24593. Today's POC is at 24603. So what did we do in the Nifty futures profile last week is a similar kind of an auction. You can see how I have this 4-day balance from 5th to 8th of August, and how we took support right at that POC on Monday, and we went on to tag this higher VPOC of 24522. And here we got rejected. We then made a trending move lower. We made similar lows here. This is a swing low which we left on Wednesday, and from here we had this neutral extreme profile on Friday, where we closed at the highs. So we left a new swing low and we left a neutral extreme profile. And in futures, because we have volumes, what we see in a neutral extreme profile is, one is the POC. Here the POC shifted to the top, so it was very clear that the buyers from that day were booking out. I'll come to the order flow chart of Friday and today, and we will have a look what the open was on Friday and how did it close, how many times it changed character in the day, and then how it opened today and what was there in the open for us using the order flow. Because what we do at vtrender at VMR is use a combination of market profile and order flow. And order flow is not just one single indicator, it is not just one parameter which we look at. Order flow is much more concrete, and it is used as a combination. It is not just cot, it is not just 10 bar cot, it is not just the IBs or the IS, but it is a combination of everything. You need to have everything in sync. That is where you get the edge. That is where you are able to take trades which have more probability of being a winner. So I'll come to the order flow chart and then show you how we needed to follow the all the parameters, and then when all of them fall in place, that is when we look to press the trigger. Because no just focusing on one single tool will not help, because each day in market is different, every day the volumes are different. So one just depending on one particular indicator will not be a wise thing to do to take trades. It is like going to a casino and placing your money, hard earned money on uh, betting, on gambling. So let's see what we have done today. After the neutral extreme, we have a very good reputation for the neutral extreme that it does not give much of a follow up. So because neutral extreme, like a trend day, is an imbalance, and what the market profile does is, once there is an imbalance, it tries to catches the breath, it forms a balance, and then either it resumes the imbalance in the direction or reverses the trend. You can see the similar thing happened on Wednesday. From this rejection on Monday, we started an imbalance to the downside, which got over here. The down move was done, then it formed a balance. From here, we started an imbalance to the upside. So now we have formed a balance here. Tomorrow we will need to see if from this balance, if the auction is turning down again to test these lower support levels, or resume the uptrend. So that we will come to know based on the open type tomorrow, as well as the order flow signals which come in. So Prem Kumar has a question asking if Gaussian curve is a decision candle. Gaussian curve is just telling us that the market is in a balance mode, and just the Gaussian curve in itself is not a trade trigger. We just get ready after we see a Gaussian curve, because we know if the balance is done, we can expect an imbalance to start soon. So that is the reason once we saw this balanced profile on Wednesday, we were ready for a bigger range move on Friday. So it was not a easy one-sided move which happened, but nonetheless we knew that it will be a bigger range day. So the same can be expected of tomorrow. But how it moves, whether it moves in one direction, whether it is a dual auction day, we will need to figure that out, seeing the order flow and the market profile. Yes. So let us have a look at the order flow of Nifty. I have the 30-minute order flow on screen, and I am starting from the Friday's open. So what we saw on Friday at the open, this is a 30-minute bar. So the 30-minute bar is not showing out much, but if when we saw the 3-minute order flow bars on Friday, it was a good open, good strong open, which was looking that it is headed higher. Once we had one thing was we had a gap up, and you can see we had zeros on the sell side, and we continued to move higher with lot of greens. If you see in this 30-minute bar also, we have lot of aggressive green color numbers rather more than the red. Red is only a single one at 1535 at the top, and we have this big LLT at 3079 where the POC had shifted. So the COT was very supportive and the volumes also were above average. In fact, we discussed about this in the audio session we have at 10:30 every day in the VMR, that how it was a drive up open. But what does the drive up mean? Drive up means the buyers have entered and the buyers will need to continue pushing for higher zones. But what happened was the opening bar we left an RS, and more importantly we closed below the VWAP of that bar. So when you are looking at upside, this kind of a bar on the A period does not give you that confidence. In spite of the COT being green, the COT was green, but the auction was not showing us that bullishness because this was an RS. RS is responsive selling. So we are not getting an IB bar here. And when we are closing below VWAP, it is telling us that the buyer has completely lost control. So when on a drive open, the VWAP is broken, it's a very strong signal that the lows of that day may be tested and we may even go for new lows. So that is what happened. And once in the B period we broke below these zeros, it was very clear that the auction is going lower to test the previous day's range, and that gap was not sustaining. So you can see how the B remained below the VWAP of the day and the two reference point of this TPO, which was the POC of 24411 and this VWAP of 24387. So once we made this, it was very clear that we are getting a seaside extension and we were looking to trade this seaside extension. And we had an extension handle at 24291, which was our initial target. And when we saw the COT turning red, we were looking for more downside. So here what happened was we had lot of greens which had come in at the open. So this COT being red was also part of the green coming out. So just like how the B period was definitely a good IS bar, you can say, because the VWAP was in the middle. The POC also was around the lows, which is not ideal. It needed to be in the middle or the upper range. And then it closed around the lower zone. And immediately we saw a follow through. But the seaside is something which we do not trust. So when we saw that auction in seaside, we wanted more confirmation that the sellers want to take it even lower by with a range extension in the D. But what did we see in the D? We saw a good big green buyer 2553, and when that came in, it was telling us that the auction is getting back demand. Even here in the seaside, you can see how at the lows we have this 1758 green standing out. So when you see this in order flow, so we know as per market profile, we know that the D needs to make lower lows. In order flow, we need to see more sell side numbers here. So that was not happening. The sell side number were coming down as the auction was moving lower. So that was a cause of concern that the sellers were not strong enough to push below this zone. And when in the E period, we got a move above VWAP. This is a very important order flow bar, and we use this concept in order flow very too many times, because when you get a zone of zeros in the order flow, that is telling us that the market is getting lot of market orders. The auction is getting a lot of market orders, and it is everyone is just getting into the move. It could be short covering, it could be fresh buying, whatever the reason, but the pace has changed, and the pace has changed in one direction. So once when we got this move with these zeros, we can take these zeros as a zone of support and look to stay long. And as I mentioned, what would be our immediate reference? If the buyer has to be in control, we want the auction to stay above VWAP. And this VWAP of this E period, which broke above the day's VWAP, was our reference on the downside along with this zone of zeros. So you can see how we remained above the VWAP. We formed a nice green bar. We went on to take off these highs. We negated this POC, and then the VWAP was again right in the middle. So, and we can see how the next bar was taking support right at this POC, DPOC of 24441. So this is showing us change of polarity. And the order flow, it is very clearly telling us, see, we are getting zeros on the sell side at exactly the same level. So we know that the auction is not yet done on the upside, and for the day we need to, the buyers needs to remain on the long side. And how do we trade this? Whenever we are getting fresh signal in the 3-minute order flow chart, we enter and we have these 30-minute references as our uh, stop losses, and also for the buyers. So for the buyers to change, we needed to see a close below VWAP on the 30-minute with a IS bar or a RS bar. So here you can see again we are getting greens, and the cot also has started to change to the green. So we then went on to make higher highs in every TPO, which is telling us that the buyer is in control. And even after the POC shifting higher, we remained above this POC. So POC shifting higher does indicate responsive selling or profit booking, but it does not mean that you need to go short at all. It definitely will pay if you part book your longs, but and then take the latest reference as your trailing stop loss. So in this case, we could have taken this 24470 as our reference, and as I showed you on the spot chart, this 24470 was the series VWAP of July. So we can see how these references, when we mark them out for a particular series, keep giving us important cues both on spot levels and future levels. So when this is holding, we know that this is an important level, and we have seen buying which is coming at the order flow. So this will definitely be defended by the buyer until we see a opposite action at that zone. We get some big reds and we get an IS bar here. So here we then go on to form this IB on 30 minutes. So this is a very powerful signal. This very well confirms that you surely need to hold some of your long positions. And now you can trail your stop loss to this POC before the IB bar, which is at 24498. So with this as your stop loss for the day, you could have held on to long positions because we were already in a neutral extreme setup. And neutral extreme setup is known to give a close at the highs. In fact, all of us in the VMR have this fight on that last part of our position. We'll book at 3:29:45 seconds because we are that sure of the neutral extreme closing at the highs. Definitely we trail it to the cost. We don't risk any money in that, so it will be a loss in profit even if it hits our trailing stop loss, but most of the time we have seen that it closes at the highs. So you can see how we went on to make new highs in the L period and almost tag that in the M. And here you can see how this IB bar also has huge green cot. This L period did see some red card coming in, which was obvious because the weekend profit booking would definitely come in, and we had a very good up move from the lows. And we did 10 bar caught on both 3 minutes and 30 minutes in Nifty futures was green, even at the close on Wednesday and open on Thursday, open on Friday. So even in the dip which we got, which we made new lows in the C period, the 10 bar caught never turned red. It was still green. So that was the reason for us to remain skeptical about remaining short, because the caught was telling us that the buyers were holding on. So it was always better to wait for order flow to show us IBs when the 10 bar caught on 3 and 30 are green, and then go with the uh, sync. That's what I was telling. Order flow is not just one parameter or one indicator. It needs to be a combination of all of them falling in place. So 10 bar caught of 3 and 30 needs to be green, and then we need to be above a previous market profile reference and above the day's VWAP. And then when we get an IB, initiative buying signal, those are like adding on to the uh, probability of that setup being a winner, and we need to be patient to wait for such kind of setups and then trade only them because they have a high percentage of being a winner. So what we did on Friday was close at the highs, and we saw the POC shift to the top. 24592 was the POC, and this was very clearly telling us that the profit booking is done. So this is what happened, but the caught was still on the green side, both on 3 and 30 minutes. The 10 bar caught. So we it was not any. There was no case of going short or being worried about the auction correcting. So that caught gave us a higher open today. So let me show you the order flow chart of today. So you can see how the higher open today did not get any fresh demand. How do we know that? You can see zeros on the buy side at the top, and you can see how the buying numbers are coming down. What we saw on the sell side on Friday, the opposite is happening today. So when in a gap up, the buyer is not trying to exert control, then it very simply means that the auction will now go on to test, go lower for test of the buying references which it had left. So once it did not show any fresh demand, and then it broke below this A period lows. So what we do is we have this VWAP and the POC as our reference, and then look for lower levels. What was the lower level? This it was this POC, and then this zone of singles from 24521 to the extension handle of 24507. And as I had mentioned, this 24498 will remain an important demand point. So the order flow was very clearly telling us at the open that there is no case of a long side bias. And once we broke this, we were looking for a C side to test this zone, and this VWAP and POC would have been our reference. And that is what we did. We remained below VWAP today, and the cot also was red, and we went on to make lower lows in the C. And the C side, as it always does, showed us an RB. So this was a sign that you need to cut out your shorts, because it you don't trust the C period. The C period is known to be a con. We also call it the con period. It gives us a false move. So when we saw this RB, you can see there were some reds also stuck below. These were the laggard reds, the late reds, who came on a just a blind breakout of price. So when we see that, we are little skeptical about holding the shorts. We'll definitely book profit and trail some to cost, because it is below VWAP, and this would have been our reference as our buy for the bias to change to the upside. So what we did in the D is we made lower lows. But when we made lower lows, you can see how we are getting more greens. So order flow was helping us here to not get into any fresh shorts, because the D period range extension is a market profile setup. But if we had traded that blindly without looking at order flow, we would have shorted in the hole, as they say, shorted in the wrong place, because we saw greens coming here. And you can see this was the first 30-minute bar which is showing us green caught. So when you see some good greens and an RB, you know that you need to wait. So when this kind of a structure is seen on the order flow, it is well said, just like how we did not get demand, so it would have tested lower references for the buyer to come back. Here it would have tested the higher references, which was the VWAP and the this POC of 24618 to test for supply. So that is what it did. It went on to make a high right at that 24618, but it could not sustain above it. So this was telling us that the supply is holding this A period zone. We had a selling tail today, and the RB of D is holding the downside. And now for the rest of the day, we remained in that narrow range with an attempt to probe higher, showing us RS at the A period reference. And the attempt to probe lower was showing us RBs at this VWAP of the D period, and this RB never got tested today. So what we have done is we have coiled, we have formed a balance, and we have closed right at this POC of 24 near 24600. So now going forward, what do we need to see? Because here this was a range bound, so we will need to either see this RB being taken out with an IS on 3 minutes, or this RS to be taken out with an IB. So which is where order flow will tell us that now this is where new volumes are coming into the market, and now we need to look for the trade in that direction. So we look at the cot, the 10 bar cot, and then we look at the order flow signals, and we have these references marked out already for tomorrow, and then accordingly take that trade. So this is as far as the Nifty futures is concerned. A quick move now to the Bank Nifty weekly chart. What we did last week was we started bullish in Bank Nifty. So we made a similar buying tail. We left a similar buying tail as we saw in Nifty spot in the B, and then went on to scale above the previous week's high. And we left an extension handle here. The extension handle I think was at around 5500, which is the same zone where we left an extension handle in futures on Friday. So here, when we made this double distribution trend day up, we stalled at one important reference. And I'll just pull up the weekly chart. And with the weekly chart, I'll open the daily spot chart. So it'll show us how the daily references also need to be taken into consideration, because there are many times where the weekly may not show any reference, but the daily will tell you that there is one important level which is holding up there. So we have the weekly profile on the left and the daily on the right. What I am going to do now is split this previous week profile and show you how we stalled last week on Monday at one reference, which was a very important reference for us. So as you can see, this double distribution trend day on the weekly chart, if you see, we have nothing here. It is just that we have gone above previous week's high, but we have formed a balance here. On the daily chart, we know that this VPOC of 5839, and we had spoken about this VPOC even in the evening session we had last Monday. So this JTPO stalled right there, and the JTPO we hold it in similar level as the C side. So we do not trust the JTPO because many times we call it J for Joker, because it many times plays with the auction. It makes a move, but the closing move is totally opposite to what it did. So when we stalled right at this POC, we knew that the auction is holding this level. The supply is holding this level. So from here, the auction then trended lower on the daily. It negated this extension handle. It went on to form a trend day down, completed the 80% rule in this composite. And then, like we saw in Nifty, we in fact broke below these weekly lows. I'll just shift back to the weekly chart now. We even broke below these swing lows, the weekly lows. We made a look down, but it was a very marginal one. So when we do that and leave a tail, it is telling us that the seller is not yet ready to break this zone. So after this, we can see how in Nifty spot we got rejected at the previous day high, but in Bank Nifty, the previous session, it broke into the previous day range, but it stopped right at the value area high. So when it is doing this, it is telling us that this is being defended. And what it did then was it left a scene of crime here, 50,020, and then went on to confirm a failed auction because it did not stay for more than 30 minutes below the IBL. So once it confirmed a failed auction at these lows of 49806 spot, the 180-year target of on upside, which was at 5490 was on, and it went on to tag that upside target. And again, you can see it made a high in the JTPO, which could not be taken out for the rest of the day. So although it was a neutral extreme profile to the upside, it was not an ideal trend day up because it did not close at the highs. So after this, if we see what has happened today, we stalled right at that VPOC of Monday, last Monday, which was at 5730. So the high of today in Bank Nifty was right there, and we left an A period selling tail. On the weekly chart also, We can see how we this HVN is formed right at that level, and similar to what we did last Monday, where we got rejected at 58.30. We got stalled at this VPOC of 57.30, and then we made a probe lower. Although we got back into previous week's range, we have formed a kind of B-shaped profile. It has not been a trending move because it is still uh, testing the references of Friday's buy side neutral extreme profile. So this halfback, as I said, halfback of neutral extreme and trend days are important in spot. Will be the important reference 5205. So this will be the level to watch out tomorrow in Bank Nifty spot. And on the upside, we need to negate this A period selling tail. So this is how we are placed on the weekly. The value and the range both had formed outside bars in Bank Nifty. So it is very clearly telling us that the auction is shuttling between supply at one zone and demand at the lower zone. So we will have to there is no case of moving away from this zone until we get that confirmation in order flow that the initiative players are coming in. So this is the weekly profile. You can see how we have formed an outside bar, both value wise and range wise. And the POC is right at the bottom. So which was telling us that whatever selling we saw in the first half of last week was booking profit in this zone. And this is also a swing low level. So it will be an important support zone for the rest of the August and the next month of September. So as of now, we are still in the last 2 weeks range. So we will need to see from today, the POC would be the opening reference for tomorrow. And we'll need to figure out how the auction will shape up tomorrow. So let's have a quick look at the Bank Nifty futures chart. And then we'll close up with the order flow chart of Bank Nifty of Friday and today. And one look at one of the option trades which we did in the VMR today. So you can see how we form this balance, and this C side in futures has taken support right at this POC level. So when market profile is giving us double confirmation, it was a VPOC which is getting rejected, and it is showing us the some one party has failed. Which party has failed here? The sellers, because they made us extension lower and immediately got back into the IB. And this is an FA 49960 in Bank Nifty of Friday. The low of Friday is a failed auction, and we have already tagged the 180R objective to the upside. And what we saw was the POC shifting higher. This does mean the profit booking has come in, and you can see how this JTPO is not giving us that confidence. This was stalling right at that VPOC of 5730, which we also saw in spot. So we need some sells buy side volumes above this 5730 for us to expect more upside in Bank Nifty. But what happened today was the higher open. I'll show you the order flow chart in a bit. Was not able to sustain above this reference, and in fact we have left a selling tail right at that level. So once we show this kind of action in the open type was very clear that the buyers are not ready to take it higher. So the only direction left was for the Bank Nifty was to probe lower, test this POC and this HVN and this VWAP. So that is what it did. And let us have a look at the order flow chart. Let us start with the Friday's order flow chart, and you can see how even in Bank Nifty we opened with a gap up. We went on to make highs of 5421, but the cot was not supporting, and immediately we came back lower. We made lower lows in the A after the open, because you can see this is a red bar, and we continued the same probe to the downside in the B. And when we got this seaside extension, you can you can see how the order flow is showing us a clean RB bar, and you can see how the sell side numbers at the lows are nothing, no, almost negligible, and this is coming right at the POC of previous day. So when you are getting rejected from one VPOC, you are looking for a probe back to the higher POC. That is what I told at the beginning of today's session, and it is on all time frames and all instruments. So that 5730, which was the higher POC, was the obvious target for Bank Nifty. So we got this IB bar on 30 minutes, which was very clean signal to go long. And you could have taken this POC and VWAP as our reference and remained on the long side. And we went on to make higher highs all through the day. And you can see where we stalled. We stalled right at that 5730 mark, which was the POC. And we have a big green here, but then we don't have any follow up. So just because an LLT has come does not mean we can blindly go long. So we do make use of LLTs also, but the LLTs have to come at important references, and they also need to form an important order flow signal. So if the LLT of 1480 had come on an IB bar with the POC at that level, that would have given us the confidence to go long with that as our support. But here you can see that 1480 is right at the top. So it looks more like a short cover or a late laggard buyer. So this is how we stalled on Friday, and the POC shifted to the top at 56.7. So if I show the opening bar of today, you can see how the higher open did not get any fresh demand. We have zeros on the buy side at the top, and immediately we have come back below this 5733. We have this RSVPOC at 5730. We have a big seller there, and then we have some good selling all through. The VWAP also was above the closing price, so that was very clearly telling us that the buyer is not doing anything after the open, and the seller is now taken over. So once we made those new lows, you can see how we have left an extension handle at this level and broken below the POC of previous day. So when we do that, we know that the auction will go on to test this HVN, which was a 475, which we saw on the market profile chart, and then the zone of zeros, which I was talking about. So 54 to 1 from Friday was an extension handle because it moved away in that 1145 bar, and after that it stayed above this. So this is where the polarity changed. The buyer took over from the sellers, took the baton from the sellers. So this was one reference. After that it made couple of attempts, but you can see zeros on the sell side, and then again a low of 5431. So this was our lower reference, and we were the VWAP of the neutral extreme of Friday also was right at that same level. So we were expecting that VWAP to get tested once we saw this kind of order flow in the B. And you can see how the C side, after making new lows, remained below the VWAP of B. So that was one indication that the seller is in control. But what we saw in C was again the selling at lower levels was drying up. So that was not giving that confidence to take fresh short positions in this zone. And we've got RB again in the D. So that definitely does not give any level to signal to go short. And this swipe above VWAP made a high right at 5675 where the selling had. We got an IS bar at that zone on the 3-minute chart. And in fact, that was the place where we look to take a put trade in the room today. So when we got this pullback high here, we knew that on the upside this will be our reference, but on the downside this will need some good big volumes, initiative sell side volumes for a probe lower. So you can see when you are getting opposite kind of numbers at the extremes, it is telling you that the late players are getting stuck. So we did make new lows in the GP rate, but you can see 612 on the sell side, not able to get any follow through. So, but overall we remain below VWAP. So the bias was on the downside, but this zone of 54 to 1 will have to be broken with some IS signal for us to go fresh short, take fresh short positions in Bank Nifty here. On the upside, we have this selling tail of today, and this has come at an important supply point from before. So that will be, as long as this is holding, we will look for Bank Nifty to continue to the downside. So this is as far as the order flow of Bank Nifty is concerned. You can see we are holding, we are getting RBs in this zone, and we have we are not able to sustain. So that will be our zone to watch for at the open tomorrow, and what order flow shows us at that levels will give us the way forward. So coming to the last part, which I was telling about the put option order flow. This is the 50,800 put which we were trading in the room today, and I have the 3-minute order flow chart on screen. And definitely, because we gapped up, you can see we have swiped, we have made lower lows, and we've got this RB bar. So after getting this RB bar, we are just consolidating in this put. And here, when the B period is starting, it is given as a very neat, clean IB bar. So this IB bar is the signal that you need to look for some good trade in this put, and it is complementing our structural view in Bank Nifty futures, because we saw no demand coming in at the open. So this IB low of 410 would be our reference, which has come at VWAP, and then we can look for higher levels here. So you can see how this auction took support right at this POC of the IB. So indicating that it is looking at upside levels, and 518 was the VWAP of Friday in this put. So if we would have broken above that, we would have expected more upside, and which is what happened. Once we broke 518, we went on to make a high of 573, which is where auctions stopped. The order flow in Bank Nifty started showing us RBs, and this was a signal for us to close out the puts. And once this IS came in the put, it was very clear that the imbalance in this put was over. So that is why we use a combination of RB plus IB, and we look at what the order flow is doing in at the VWAP. And if you are getting an IB at VWAP, we have a 10 bar rule where if you are getting one more IB inside 10 bars, it is clearly telling us you need to hold on to some part of that position for more upside. So this is how we look at trades. We use order flow as a combination. We have 6 important features in the order flow, and all of them have been explained in the orientation videos on the vTrender chart section. So we need to look at it as a combination and not look at it individually. So we need to see the 10 bar chord, we need to see the order flow signals, we need to see zeros in the bar, and then we need to see how it is coming relative to previous VWAP or POCs or the current day's VWAP and POC. So that is how we make the trade to be more in our favor when we follow all of these parameters falling in sync. In case they are not falling and there is a mismatch, it is better to stay out and wait for the right correct signal. So that is what we do in the VMR. We all of us there are traders, and we look at these charts and help each other and handle new traders who get into the room. First, they need to go through the training library videos to understand what our process is, what the market profile setups are, what the order flow concepts are, and then accordingly start identifying them in the live markets and take trades, monetize the process. So that's what we do at the VMR. So in case any of you are interested in uh, jumping onto the next level of trading, this is what you will need to do and be part of this wonderful team. And the process we have, the combination we have the order flow chart, we have the market profile charts, and then we have the option suite. So we have a very lethal combination, and once all of them, we take trades based on all of the things falling in place, we do make sure that the probability of that being a winner is more in our favor. So along with the VMR subscription, you get access to the Premium Plus V-Trender charts, where you can see all these signals and live, and you can also select what time frame you need to watch them on. So that is it from my side for today, guys. In case there are any queries, I'll be happy to answer them before we wind up for the day. Manish had a question, and I think we have already answered that about how is Bank Nifty looking today. We have formed a B-shaped profile. We have a selling tail at the top, which will have to get negated, and the neutral extreme VWAP of 5401 would be the important support for tomorrow as well as Wednesday's weekly settlement. So break of 5400 with an IS will mean weakness, and we can look for good more downside in Bank Nifty futures. So in case there are no queries, guys, so we would want to sign off for today, and hope you liked our presentation and you are gaining with what we are trying to share, and we our attempt is to make use of the edges we have and make use of the latest data so that we do not get stuck in a wrong position. Nifty view was also discussed. We have a 313 profile, and we have taken support at 24518 on the downside. These are spot references, and this is 24641 is the 180R 280R from the VPOC. So one of these, this tail will have to be negated, and I have already given the levels on upside as well as downside, and we'll have them marked again in the report, which will go out later tonight. So you can have a look, and you can have a revisit to this video, which will get updated on YouTube in some time for the levels for tomorrow. So then again, we will have to see what open type we get tomorrow, and then accordingly form a bias and look at the levels in that direction. So that is it for today, guys. Have a great evening, and thanks for joining in. So till the next time, let us have some good trading setups working our way and try to make most of what we have with us. Thank you, guys. Signing off.